Welcome. We're about to dive into a really fundamental shift in worldview. We're going to look at how early Islamic teachings, according to our source, took a world that seemed chaotic and turned it into a vision of a universe that's deeply ordered and full of meaning. So let's get into how that huge transformation actually happened. So the text tells us that the starting point was just deep confusion. I mean, can you imagine not having a clear framework for where the world came from, what your place in it is, or where everything is even going? That's the kind of mental space the prophet's companions were supposedly in before this new understanding came along. And that brings us to the big question, right? How do you go from feeling like everything is just random to knowing that everything, I'm talking from the stars in the sky down to the animals on the ground, is all working with some kind of purpose and wisdom? Well, the answer, it turns out, is learning to see creation in a whole new light. Okay, so to build this brand new worldview, the source material goes right back to the beginning. And it doesn't just say, the world was created. No, it lays out a really specific step-by-step process. It establishes a clear cosmic timeline. You can really see the deliberate structure here, can't you? First, you get the Earth. Then it's provision. We're talking mountains, blessings, everything its inhabitants would need to survive. And only after that do you get the completion of the heavens. This is the exact opposite of chaos. It's more like a deliberate, multi-stage construction project designed to show order right from the very start. This right here gets to a core idea from the source, this concept of an original unity. The idea is that before you had a separate heaven and earth, they were actually one single, united thing. So the act of creation that's being described here is really an act of separation. It's about creating distinction, function, and order from what was once a unified whole. And check this out. The text doesn't picture the early cosmos as just an empty void. Instead, it gives us this really powerful image of smoke. Think of it like a gaseous, raw material that was then intentionally shaped to form the heavens. It really gives you a sense of raw potential being crafted with a purpose. So we go from that massive cosmic scale and we zoom right into the biological. This verse is presented as an absolutely foundational principle, that the starting point for all life, the one thing that unites every single living creature, is water. It just adds this other, deeper layer of interconnectedness to this whole ordered system. All right, so let's see how this idea of order moves from the grand cosmos right down into the natural world, the world the companions were seeing every single day. The environment, in this view, wasn't just scenery. The text frames it more like a living book, just packed with signs and meaning. The key word here is purpose. See, the wind isn't just wind. It's described as fertilizing, meaning it has a job to do in creating rain clouds. And the rain isn't just some random weather event. It's a provision being sent down. Every single part of the water cycle is presented as an intentional piece of a much larger system of providing for creation. Now, this is a pretty radical shift in perspective. Animals aren't just seen as resources, for food or transport. The text actually elevates them, calling them distinct nations or communities, like you. It paints a picture of a world just filled with societies that exist parallel to ours, and they're all part of this same grand ordered design. And this comparison is really fascinating. The source points out humanity's tendency, what it calls our insatiable appetite, to plan, to save, to hoard, and to constantly worry about the future. But then you have animals. They're presented as just living in a state of trust, getting what they need day to day without all that anxiety. It's a really powerful commentary on two totally different ways of living inside the world system. Okay, so now the source material takes all these physical signs of order we've been talking about, the water, the plants, the wind, and it weaves them together into this deep philosophical lesson about life itself. Basically, the physical order of the universe is used as a mirror to understand the moral order of our lives. And look where we start, with water. Again, the very same element described as the source of all life. This parable, as the text lays it out, uses the simple cycle of farming as a direct metaphor for the entire arc of a human life and all its worldly ups and downs. So this first part, this is the flourishing stage. It's youth, it's beauty, wealth, success. It's all those moments when the world just looks amazing and full of promise. This is the peak, right? The part of life and worldly growth that can be so captivating. But then, just as fast as it grew, it's gone. This image just starkly drives home the core message of the parable, that all of that worldly beauty, all of that success, is completely temporary. Just like dried up plants, it breaks into pieces and the wind just scatters it, leaving nothing behind. What a powerful image of just how fleeting everything is. So, a parable like that naturally forces you to stop and think, right? If this vibrant green world that we see all around us is just destined to become scattered dust, then what's actually real? What's permanent? The text argues that the answer has to lie somewhere beyond this temporary life. And that's why the text argues that this worldly life, with all its competition for more stuff, for higher status, is ultimately a deceiving enjoyment. It feels so important in the moment, but because it's so fleeting, just like that green vegetation, it ends up being a major distraction from what the text presents as the only two real outcomes in the hereafter, either severe punishment or forgiveness and God's pleasure. And that really brings our whole journey here to a close. Think about it. We've gone from the ordered creation of a smoky cosmos all the way to the final scattering of life's greenery. The path described in this source is all about moving from confusion to clarity. It frames the universe not as some random accident, but as a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the question it leaves us with is this: if the world is a story, what's the moral? And how should that moral shape the way we actually live our lives?